Hari Om. Let's start with a prayer. Om Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanura Mardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Tvameva Mata Cha Pitatvameva Tvameva Bandhusya Sakhatvameva Tvameva Vidya Dravidam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Amadeva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Gurudeva Deva. Hari Om. Today we are starting the 8th chapter of Panchadashi by Vidyaranya Swami. As we know, the whole Panchadashi, the 15 chapters, Panchadashi means 15, the 15 chapters are divided into Panchakas. First five deals with the Sat aspect of it. From the second five deals with the Chit aspect, and the last five deals with the Ananda. So we are now doing the Chit aspect, essentially symbolized as a Deepa Prakaranam. Deepa means the light. Since Chit is light of consciousness, so it is pictured as a Deepa Prakaranam. So we are doing the 8th chapter. We just completed the 7th chapter. 7th chapter exhaustively deals with the Trupti Deepa Prakarana, the contentment of a realized person, that who is essentially involved Atmaniyeva Atmanatushtaha. So its analysis of Sita Prajna Lakshanam of the whole thing is essentially an explanation of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad in the 4th chapter, 4th Brahmana, and the 12th mantra is Atmanam Chet Vijaniyat Ahamasmi iti Purushaha Kimichan Kasya Kamaya Sariram Anusajjared. So the whole commentary, about 298 slokas, verses, are essentially commentary on the Brahma Sutra mantra that we quoted just now. Now we are entering into another chapter, 8th chapter, and this is called Kutastha Deepa Chaitanyam. So Kutastha Deepam, Kutastham itself is the Chaitanyam, and Deepam also involves in the Chit aspect here, light of consciousness, but it is named as a Kutastha, so emphasis is on the Kutastha. What is Kutastha? Kutastha literally means the anvil which doesn't change. So on top of anvil we beat it to make things change. So if anvil also changes, then you cannot use it at all as the base on which you can make other changes of the objects. So Kutastha Chaitanya, Kutastham stands for unchanging, and Kutastham also symbolized as a Chaitanya Swarupam, because Chaitanyam, consciousness, is being infinite, because Prajnanam Brahma is the Vedantic statement. So consciousness is infinite is a Veda Pramana, Vedanta Pramana. That means this knowledge can be gained through the Vedanta only. Consciousness, otherwise we cannot know what is consciousness, and even scientists are trying to analyze what is consciousness. An objective scientist feels that consciousness arose from the material. So material was there, and from that somehow, quote unquote, somehow means we don't know, the ignorance of how, and suddenly a consciousness arose under certain circumstances which they don't know what it means. So for them the consciousness arose. How do you know consciousness arose? They are still analyzing. Recently they are having a problem of even defining the mind, because mind cannot be objectified, or mind cannot be objectively analyzed using the objective tools. Not that mind cannot be objectified, because when I say I know my mind, I know the emotions in my mind, that means I am objectifying the mind. But when they say the mind cannot be analyzed using objective tools, and because it is not an object, it is a subtle material, and therefore you cannot use the gross tools in order to analyze the subtle. And therefore, the philosophers and the psychologists that are Western psychologists are struggling hard, whereas Vedanta is very clear that the mind is only a subtle material and is also an object which it is illumined by consciousness, and consciousness is there before the material. In fact, there is no material really, because consciousness alone was there as a Brahman, infinite. So when you say Kutastha Chaitanyam, it is that part of the all-pervading consciousness that is falling on the local equipment is called Kutastha Chaitanyam. And this chapter is going to analyze what is Kutastha Chaitanyam. So in the process is the knowledge is taking, analysis of how knowledge takes place is going to be discussed here exhaustively. And it's a very interesting chapter, because the science, objective science cannot enter into this field. They know that I know something, but how exactly knowledge takes place? All I say, I see a chair. But what does it mean, I see a chair? Because I know it is a chair, but how does the knowledge take place is not really known. All they know through is the senses can see through the light reflection in the retina forms an image, and the image is transmitted to the optical nervous system up to neurons it forms into the brain. Then how does it further into knowledge of a chair? How does a thought arises? Where does it arise? What is their mind? All that cannot be understood or analyzed using the objective tools. So they say somehow. Somehow means we don't know. For that reason only Vedanta becomes a pramana for this. Now we are going to analyze how knowledge takes place, what exactly means by kshetragyam sapimam viddhi. So kshetram, kshetragyam, that who is knower field and knower of the field. All that is being analyzed here exhaustively in this chapter. We will refer to some of this from the Vedanta Paribhasha, takes some of these aspects from this only, and those who are interested, I have written a critical analysis of Vedanta Paribhasha. Vedanta Paribhasha analyzes how knowledge takes place through different pramanas. Pramana means of knowledge. And in that, Pratyaksha Pramana, that means direct perceptual knowledge, is being analyzed exhaustively. And I've written commentary on that, and Dennis White from England has gone through and edited it, and it's available on the website. And if you go to the www.advaitaforum.org, under articles there is the critical Vedanta Paribhasha critical analysis. It will take you to Dennis White website where the analysis is presented. Now we are going to refer to that some of aspects of it for clarification, and this is a analysis of the Kutastha Chaitanyam. And here a famous example of Vidyaranya is provided here, that has been well quoted all over. And here he looks at two aspects of it. One is the Samanya Chaitanyam, another is the Visishta Chaitanyam. Samanya Chaitanyam, so we are talking about Kutastha Chaitanyam, is the all-pervading Satchidananda, which is infinite, and from that reference there is no knowledge, no object even to know it, because there is nothing other than Ekameva Advitiyam, one without a second. So there is nothing of that. So that's called Paramarthika Satyam, and from that Paramarthika Satyam there is no discussion even. Na Vaggachati, na Manaha, neither speech can go there or the mind can go there. Yadgatvana Nivartante Prapya Manasamaha. So they so whatever the gone, mind cannot go there or speech cannot go there, describing the nature of the pure consciousness. Therefore, even I cannot talk about it, but the scripture points in the direction for us to uplift the mind and use the very mind to see that. That's what is being analyzed here. And this is a famous example of Samanya Chaitanyam, a general consciousness, and Visishta Chaitanyam, specific consciousness. So there is a Samanyam is one aspect of it that's common for all the conscious entities, and Visishta Chaitanyam is a specific to I am this, that is Visishta Chaitanyam, where the particular intellect is being illumined. So it is Samanya Chaitanya is here example is given by the Vidyaranya, is there as though there is a wall and sunlight falling on the wall, illumining the wall. That's called Samanya Chaitanyam, for Samanya example for that. And on top of the wall, besides the sunlight that is general, there is another spotlight, and spotlight is coming from a reflection by a mirror. So a mirror is placed and that is reflecting the sunlight, and that is falling on top of the already illumined the wall. So but this the mirror reflecting being so bright, so there is a bright spot on a general spot. So on the general light that is falling on the wall, there is a bright spot falling on that too. And if there are many mirrors, each mirror they focus at particular point in the on the wall and being illumined, and that is being a Visishta Chaitanyam, and a general wall is that is illumination is called the Samanya Chaitanyam. General, and Visishta is particular or special. All that is being illumined by the original consciousness, the sunlight. So we have three aspects actually. One is the sunlight, which is all pervading, and that is illumining the wall. That's one called Samanya Chaitanyam, and other one is the through the mirror spots, bright spots on the wall. That's called Visishta Chaitanyam. That spot depending upon the size of the mirror, and also how intensity that spot depends upon the purity of the mirror. All this analogy is being used to differentiate the general consciousness and specific consciousness in one. That's one aspect of it as we go. And also general consciousness of the I am conscious of, I am a conscious entity as a general, and when I say I am conscious of this, that is illumining this. So that becomes a Visishta Chaitanyam. All this has to be understood clearly in terms of how knowledge takes place. We will analyze this as we go along, and this is a very intense chapter a little bit, because it's going to analyze the consciousness, Chidabhasa, and Kutastha Chaitanya, the pure consciousness, which is difficult to differentiate, and one has to do using Viveka only. The example I gave is essentially there is a general light falling on the hand, just as any other light falling around it is also falling on the hand. That part of the general light that is falling on my hand, the original light, is called Kutastham. That is specific in that sense, because it's a general only, but falling on that we call it a Kutastham, and we are differentiating that part that is falling on hand compared to falling on my face or falling on the wall behind and so on. So same light is falling all over. From the light that is falling on my hand, my face, my wall, on the wall behind, there is no difference of that light also. The difference is coming only the object that is on which it is falling. Now when the light is falling on my hand, that's Kutastha Chaitanyam, there is reflection by the hand, and reflection by my face, reflection by the behind wall, and reflection by any object that is getting illumined by the light. So the reflected light from the hand and reflected light from my face is the one that one sees through your eyes and differentiate. This is a hand, this is a face, this is a wall, and so on and so forth. So there are Samanya Chaitanyam, that is original light, and reflected light, that is essentially the Chidabhasa type. All are there involved even in any perception. This kind of things, but you cannot distinguish the original light and the reflected light from the hand. This we discussed before. The original light that is falling, or the reflected light, because you cannot see the original light. Because if my hand is not there, you cannot see the light that is there where the hand was. So you need the hand in order to reflect it. Only then you can recognize the presence of the general light. Without a reflecting medium, the Kutastha Chaitanyam cannot be recognized. Not that it is not there, it is there, but it cannot be recognized. General light is there, but it cannot be seen or cannot be recognized. All that is being now going to be discussed intensely using this general example of a wall, Samanya Chaitanyam. Wall is being illumined by the sunlight within the space. So that sunlight illumining the wall, same sunlight falling on the mirror, again illumining the wall in a spot wise. These two, one is a Samanya Chaitanyam and a Visishta Chaitanyam, and another is the general sunlight that is. So we have actually three aspects that need to be clear. We will go into the first sloka here. So he jumps right into the example here. Let's chant number first sloka. Khaditya dipite kujje, Khaditya dipite kujje, Darpanaditya diptivat, Darpanaditya diptivat, Kutastabhasito dehaha, Kutastabhasito dehaha, Dhistadjivena bhasyate, Dhistadjivena bhasyate. So Kha Aditya, Kha Aditya. Kha means space, Aditya is sun. So the sun in the sky, so he is going jump right into the example of there is a sun in the sky, sunlight, sun is there. And Dipite Kujye, Dipite, that is illumined Kujye, the wall. So the wall that is being illumined by the sun in the sky, illumine the wall, sunlight that illumines the wall. So that's one, is called general light. So the whole white is there, and that part of the light that is falling on my hand and illumining my hand is called Samanyam, and that way we can take it. This is Dipite Kujje, Darpana Aditya Diptivatu. So on top of this, Darpana Aditya Diptivatu. So Darpana Aditya Dipta. So the one Aditya, the sunlight that is falling on the Darpana, that means on the mirror, and Diptivatu, that being illumined by the mirror that is of the sunlight falling on the mirror and illumining the wall. So you have to think of wall is there, which is illumined by the general sunlight, plus on top of it there is another light coming from, illumined by the mirrors, that sunlight again falling on the mirrors and getting reflected back to the wall. And now I have two things. One is the wall, which is being illumined by consciousness. Another is on top of it, another sunlight spot that is illumined by sunlight via the mirror, and each mirror, depending on the mirror, you have spots there. So he is giving a general description of the example first. So Khaditye dipite kujye darpanaditya diptivatu, Kutastha bhasito dehaha, Dhista jivena bhasyate, Kutastha bhasito dehaha. So there is general consciousness that is illumined by the deha. Deha means the body. Deha means it includes the Sthula Sariram, Sukshma Sariram, and the Karana Sariram being illumined by Kutastha Chaitanyam. Means I am conscious of the general body, waking this consciousness of the gross body, the subtle body, and the Karana Sarira. Dhista jivena bhasyate. Dhista jivena bhasyate. So dhista reflected in the intellect. Dhista in the that which exists in the reflected, existent of the reflected consciousness in the buddhi. Jivena, by the Jiva bhasate, is illumined. So there are essentially two lights here. One is the general light and another is a specific light. Samanya, general, and Visishta, specific. And general is that which is the consciousness that illumining the whole body. Illumining we'll go into more detail later. Not only illumining, also it is the existence also has to be understood. But here we are talking about the illumination. So general illumination of all the things that are there, all the bodies, everything, that's called the one aspect. And the specific by the Jivena, by the Jiva, is illumining a specific things, and that's what is called the particular Visishta aspect of it also. So you have two lights that are being discussed. These two lights reference keep changing as we understand clearly. One, the Chidabhasa, and we talk about Kutastha Chaitanya and Chidabhasa, and one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is illumination of general versus the specific thoughts also. So in both ways, this general versus the specific, this can be changing depending upon what we are referring to. But here he is referring to, as we see, that general illumination and specific thought illumination as the Visishta versus Samanya. So here we have to think of essentially the three things. One is the pure light of consciousness, sunlight, that has nothing to do with any of this. You say, why are you illuminating the wall? Why are you illuminating the mirror and all that? You say, I have nothing to do with it. I am self-shining, self-existing, and I am all-pervading. I have the existence of the particular wall or particular mirror I have no knowledge of also. So from the point of sunlight has to be there, which is all-pervading. That is there. Now that itself is falling in two different places and getting illumined, and that's what we are referring to here. So we have pure sunlight, which is all-pervading, which is essentially Satchidanandam, which is essentially Brahman. And that part of the sunlight that is falling on the specific, which is general, we call it, is a wall, you call it a general. And that which is more specific is that is falling on the mirrors. So you have two specific. One is general specific, another is specific specific. One is a regular wall that is illumined, another is a mirror falling on the mirror and getting reflected on the wall. So the analogy has to be understood in order to understand the theory behind what he is talking about, Kutastha Chaitanyam versus Chidabhasa Chaitanyam. Okay, let's do second. Aneka darpanaditya deeptanam bahu sandhishu itara vyajate tasam abhavepi prakashate. Together, aneka darpanaditya deeptanam bahu sandhishu itara vyajate tasam abhavepi prakashate. So aneka darpana aditya deeptanam. Now we are talking many mirrors now. Aneka darpanam. So among many mirrors, darpana aditya deeptanam. Adityam is the sunlight falling and getting illumined by the many mirrors that are there. So imagine there is a general one wall and there are many mirrors around, and all the mirrors that are sunlight is also falling on those mirrors, and reflection of the sunlight falling on the mirror is again falling on the wall. So you have on the wall there are two lights. One is the general light, another is the specific light coming from the reflection of the mirrors that are there. And there are many mirrors, therefore many bright spots all over. So mirror is only finite, therefore the spot is also finite. Even though sunlight is not finite. Sunlight is only falling, only part of sunlight is falling on the mirror. So that part is only, we call it a kutastham. So that part and getting illumined on the wall. So wall has one general light and other spotlights all over. So aneka darpanaditya deeptanam bahusandishu. So essentially, so in these spots, there is a gap between the bright. When I look at the wall, there are a lot of bright spots, and in between the bright spots there is a sandhi, means there is a gap between them. So these are spots all over, and in between the spot there is a gap between the two spots. That's what he is referring to. Bahusandishu, there are a lot of sandhi, means junctions where there is no mirror lights, there is only gap there. Itara vyajati, so the other lights are seen. That means there is a general light. Samanyam is light is seen in that gap. In the specific one, you have a general light plus the spotlight. In those places where there is no spotlight, there is a general light, sunlight is falling on the wall, that is there. So there are many sandhi, there are many junctions, and many as though is being illumined by the general light. So itara vyajate, other lights are seen. Tasam abhave api prakashate. So tasam, so in those, even when spotlights are absent, tasam abhave api, tasam, those spotlights when they are not there, abhave api prakasate, this general light will be still there. Suppose I remove all the mirrors, but still there is a general light now without any spots. The spotlight and the general light is there, and between there are many junctions, and this general light is there even when the spotlights are not there. So this has to be understood here. This is going to be relevant when the thoughts there and when the thoughts are not there. Also, when particular the jiva is there and other jivas are there, and in between there is a gap also. There is a general as well as specific. Even when the jivas are not there, there is a general there. All that application at a more vyashti level and samashti level. Vyashti level is at an individual level, in the mind, thoughts, and general, and also in the world where many jivas are spots, and at the same time a gap between the two are the general. So this example is applicable in both ways also. But here is going to first illustrate with the vyashti, individual respect is going to present it here. So aneka darpanaditya dittanam bahusandishu itara vyajati tasam abhavepi prakashate. That's sloka 2. Now we take sloka 3. Chidabhasa visishtanam tadhaneka dhyamaso Sandhim dhiyama bhavam cha bhasayan pravivicyatam. Together, chidabhasa visishtanam tadhaneka dhiyamaso sandhim dhiyama bhavancha bhasayan pravivicyatam. Tada jidabhasa visishtanam. Let's look at to make sure that we are chanting correctly. So chidabhasa visishtanam tadhaneka dhiyamasau sandhim dhiyama bhavam cha bhasabhya pravivicyatam. So tatha chidabhasa visishtanam. So chidabhasa visishta tatha, in the same way, similarly, along with specific chidabhasa, that means reflected consciousness on these specific things. Aneka dhiyam sandhim. So in between many thoughts, that is aneka dhiyam. Dhi here is interpreted as the thoughts that arise in the buddhi. That's from the vyashti point. So aneka dhiyam sandhim. So between the thought and the thought and the thought. So how do we know thought? So here the Vedantic explanation of the knowledge of the thought is the consciousness illumining the thought. So therefore, just as the bright spot falling on the wall, there is a bright spot falling on the thought. What is the bright spot? The light of consciousness as though falling on the thought. So that is particularly we call is a reflected consciousness. So which is called Chidabhasa Visishtanam. So Visishta coming from the reflection from of the reflected light falling on the particular thought. Reflected light is because there are mirrors there, and reflecting on the particular wall is what is called the Sandhim Dhyama Bhavam Cha. So essentially, Chidabhasa Visishtanam, along this specific Chidabhasa Cha, Dhyam Abhavam. So in the absence of, so whenever the thought rises, I know the thought. I know the thought only because I am conscious of the thought. I know the thought means I am conscious of the thought. That means consciousness illumining the thought. That means there is a reflection of or the illumination of the thought, and thought reflects, therefore I am conscious. If the thought doesn't reflect, then I am not conscious. It's like a light is falling on the object, therefore I know the object. Because without the light falling on the object, I will not know the object. Why I know the object when the light is falling? Because that object is reflecting the light that is falling on it, and the reflected light is coming to me, then I know that there is an object there. So existence of the object is known only because there is a reflection of the light that is falling on it. The same way the thought is known because the reflected consciousness is getting reflected by the thought. Any reflection is called the reflected consciousness, called Chidabhasa. Chidabhasa is reflected consciousness. Here reflection is by the thought itself, and therefore is called every thought that rises, there is a reflection of the consciousness. So the presence of the thought is known by the reflected consciousness. If there is no reflection coming from the thought, then I don't know the thought is there or not. So the knowledge of the thought depends upon the reflection, the capacity to reflect that consciousness. Then only I know that there is a thought. So because I am conscious of the thought. So whenever I say I am conscious of, that means I know. If I am not conscious of, then it's not. Are you conscious of that object there? Yes, because I know it is there. So whether it's coming from the Sabda Pramana, from the sense data, that means I know because of my senses are able to see it, and therefore I know. So that's one way of knowing it. And another way of knowing it through pramana is through knowing through the other means of knowledge. So all that becomes a pramana, provided I have the knowledge of what it is. So essentially, Chidabhasa Visishtanam, along with the specific Chidabhasa, Dhyam Abhavaha. So when the thought is there, the light is getting reflected, therefore I have a knowledge of the thought. Suppose when thought is not there, then what is there? Then there is an absence of the thought. So this has to be careful here. So absence of the thought is also a knowledge. Why? Because there is every thought is associated with an object, and absence of the thought is also an absence of an object now. So absence of the knowledge is also a knowledge, and that also becomes a pramana. So essentially the Anupalabdhi Pramana, it's called Anupalabdhi Pramana, where the abhava, the absence of it is known as that. So you have to be careful here. Very interesting analysis if you really analyze. Says, is there a chair there? Suppose there is no chair there. So it says, yeah, there is no chair there. So how do you know? So I can see. So what is I can say? There is no chair there. If you see, what is that you are seeing? I am seeing the absence of a chair. So the chair thought whenever there is a chair thought arising in my mind. So that thought is being illumined, therefore I say there is a chair. So chair thought that arises whenever I see a chair, what is happening? According to Vedanta, senses are bringing information in the form of a vritti, as a thought, and that thought is raising in my mind. And the thought has to be illumined by my consciousness. So consciousness has to brighten the whole thought for me to know that there is a thought. Knowledge of the thought is due to consciousness illumination. Then I am conscious of the thought. I am conscious of every thought that rises in my mind. And every thought is related to some object. Therefore, when the chair thought arises in my mind, therefore it is illumined. So knowledge of the chair thought is there. Therefore, knowledge of the object there. Suppose the object is not there. So what should I say? Hey, is there a chair there? Say, I don't see a chair. I don't see a chair means I am seeing the absence of a chair. How can I see the absence of a chair? I can only see the presence of a chair. So I am not able to see an object with the chairness. That's what essentially, or more generally, an object which has the attributes of the chair. There is no object that has an attributes of the chair there. Therefore, I say there is no chair there. Now, is this a thought in my mind or is it absence of the thought? One way to look at it is absence of the chair thought. So therefore, presence here is looking at presence or absence of the chair thought, or here going to give example of a pot. So presence or absence of the thought is being known, because I know there is a chair or I know there is no chair. Right? That's what is being. Now apply. So is there a Gaga Boo Boo there? We'll come back to that. Gaga Boo Boo is there. Is there Gaga Boo Boo there? Do you see there is a Gaga Boo Boo there? What's Gaga Boo Boo? I don't know, but do you see it? If you don't know, I don't know, how can I see whether there is a Gaga Boo Boo or not there? I can only know that if there is something which I already know, the attribute content of that, I should know that if it is not there or not. So you see a lot of people say, was Rama Rao there? I don't know who is Rama Rao. I see a lot of people here. Because I should have known in advance a person by name Rama Rao with these attributes, and I don't see that attributive content because I have knowledge of the attributes of an Rama Rao, and therefore I am seeing all the people and see who has the same attributes that I know of what Rama Rao, and then I can say whether Rama Rao is present or absent also. So here absence of the part, absence of an object is also known. Now there is a thought. When the presence of the thought is by a specific thought with the akara, with the attributes of the thought, I know. But absence of it is also I know. So here he is talking about the absence also. And let's see, Chidabhasa Visishtanam Tadhaneka Diyamaso Sandhim Dhiyamabhavam Cha Bhasayan Pravivicyatam. So Aneka Dhiyam, Chidabhasa Visishtanam, along with the specific Chidabhasa, that means Visishta, there is the spotlights that I am seeing. And Aneka Dhiyam Sandhim, in between the gap between that, there is no spotlights, that also I see. So Dhiyam Abhavam, so absence of the spotlights in between is also known. So Dhiyam Abhavam, absence of the thoughts also. Bhasayan is being illumined by consciousness. Asau, and that pravichatam, this has to be inquired and understood. So now we have two things. One is when the thought rises in my mind, it is known because I am conscious of the thought. Therefore, consciousness as though illumining a rising of a thought. Let's say thought is like a wave. So I am conscious of the wave rising in my mind. So also when the thought is not there, or in between two thoughts when there is no thought, just as in between the bright spot there is no bright spot there, that I am also conscious, but it is illumined by the general sunlight that is illumining the wall. Same way there is another illumination of the absence of the specific bright spots. Same way, general illumination of the absence of the specific thought that arises also. Now I need to inquire, how do I know this? How do I know that? That's what is being questioned here. So I have knowledge of two things. One is the presence as well as the absence. Presence of bright spots and absence of the bright spot in between. I am conscious of the bright spot. I am conscious of the gap between the bright spot, which is a general light. Now, how do I know? In the same way, a thought rising in my mind, and between the two thoughts, there is a gap between the two thoughts. That how am I know? All that is also. I am conscious of this object, I am conscious of that object. In between, there may not be any object. Then I am conscious of the absence of this object also. How do I know all that? Has to be inquired into. That's what he says. Pravicchatam, pravivicchatam. So one has to inquire, deeply understand how exactly this knowledge is taking place. Knowledge of the thought and knowledge of the absence of the thought also. Because both are objectifiable knowledge only. This we will go into more details in the next talk. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.